All right, let's dive in. Today we're exploring something, well, a bit more personal, a bit more, I don't know, maybe even a little spooky. Relationships. But not just any relationships. We're talking about relationships beyond the grave, as described in, you guessed it, the Spirits book.
Yeah, it's pretty wild how Allan Kardec, way back in the 1800s, used mediums, to chat with spirits.
Like actual conversations.
Actual conversations. And he carefully documented all of it, like a meticulous record of spirit communication. It gives us a peek into this, well, normally unseen world.
A backstage pass to the afterlife, right?
Exactly.
And for this deep dive, we're focusing specifically on Chapter 6, where Kardec goes deep into the dynamics of spirit relationships. It's like, how do they work? How do they form? What happens to the bonds we make here on Earth?
He asks about all that stuff, like, do earthly bonds continue after death? Do we reunite with family and friends? And even, what about soulmates?
Ah, the big soulmate question.
Exactly. And the answers he got weren't just vague, mystical pronouncements. They're actually surprisingly structured, almost like, I don't know, a sociology lesson for the spirit world.
Okay, so paint us a picture. What happens to those we love when we make that transition?
Well, the spirits Kardec talked to were very clear. True affection, it doesn't just disappear, it sticks around. In fact, they say these bonds can even become stronger in the spirit world.
Why is that?
They're free from, I guess, the limitations of physical life. No more distractions, no more drama, just pure connection.
So a kind of purified essence of those relationships.
Precisely. They describe these reunions with those who passed before them, and it's filled with, like, pure joy, a deep sense of peace.
That's actually really comforting to hear. But I imagine it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right? What about those who, well, maybe didn't lead the most virtuous lives? Is their reunion quite so heartwarming?
That's where things get, well, a little more complicated. According to the spirits, the welcome isn't exactly universal. Those who haven't focused on their spiritual progress, they might find themselves surrounded by, well, spirits who share their less-than-ideal tendencies.
So their company reflects their choices even after they've transitioned.
Yeah.
It's almost like a cosmic consequence, I guess.
Exactly. Actions have repercussions even in the spirit world.
That makes you think. But, okay, let's say you do end up reuniting with loved ones. How do you even recognize each other without physical bodies?
Ah, that's where the concept of the paraspirit comes in. Think of it as a spirit's aura, like this luminous envelope that reflects their true nature. And it's through this paraspirit that spirits recognize each other.
So like an instant I know you kind of thing.
Exactly. But there's more. They can also access each other's past lives. Easy peasy, like reading a book.
Whoa, imagine that. You run into someone and boom, you know their entire history.
Right. No awkward introductions needed.
Okay, but hold on. What happens when you bump into someone, say, someone you wronged in a past life? Is that like a super awkward encounter?
Well, the spirits say truly good spirits are always inclined to forgive, especially if there's genuine remorse. But here's the thing. Those who hold on to resentment, even after death, they can actually influence the path of those they resent, like in future lives.
So karma's a real thing, huh? Makes you think twice about holding grudges.
Right. Better to let go and move on.
Okay, let's shift gears for a sec. What about the idea of soulmates? You know, that whole destined to be together forever thing. Is there any truth to that?
Now, this is where things get interesting. The spirits, well, they kind of debunk that whole eternal halves myth. They say, sure, genuine affection endures, but spirits are individuals. They grow, they evolve.
There's a cosmic matchmaking service, no one special person we're predestined to be with?
Not exactly. They say true spiritual connection, it comes from shared progress and affinity, not some fixed fate.
So even those relationships we consider soul deep here, those can transform as we and our loved ones evolve.
Precisely. It's all about growth. And that's what we're going to explore next. How relationships can actually evolve in the spirit world. It's kind of funny, right? We tend to think of the spirit world as this perfectly harmonious place, where everyone gets along and there's no conflict.
Yeah, like a giant group hug in the clouds.
Exactly. But the spirits Kardec talked to, well, they paint a bit of a different picture. Turns out they still experience emotions, just like we do here. And that includes, disagreements, even antipathy.
So even without, like, traffic jams and bills to fight about, spirits can still bump heads.
Oh, yeah. Think about it. Even here, we clash with people who have different beliefs, values. The spirits are basically saying those differences don't just magically vanish after death. Actually, they might even be amplified.
Why amplified?
Well, in the spirit world, there's no hiding. No pretending. Your true character is on full display.
Makes sense. So no more putting on a fake smile for that annoying coworker, huh?
Exactly. But how do these disagreements actually play out? Do spirits, like, throw ethereal punches at each other?
I'm picturing a ghostly debate club.
Haha, not quite. They describe it more as an energetic repulsion, like a sense of discomfort, maybe even aversion.
So more like a bad vibe than a full-blown argument.
Yeah, more of an underlying discord. And they say this aversion can be pretty intense. They even warn against trying to communicate with spirits who, have a strong antipathy towards us.
Why is that?
Well, it can be emotionally draining. And kind of pointless, If someone's really not vibing with you, forcing a conversation probably won't be very productive.
Okay, so you're basically saying choose your spirit companions wisely.
Exactly. But the good news is these antipathies, they don't have to last forever. That's where spiritual evolution comes in.
How so?
Well, as spirits progress, they kind of shed those earthly burdens, the prejudices, the judgments. They develop a broader understanding, a deeper compassion.
So someone you might consider an enemy in this life could actually become an ally in the spirit world.
Exactly. And it's not just a passive thing. Spirits actually work to overcome those antipathies. They see them as obstacles to their growth.
That's pretty powerful. So it really is all about progress, huh? Constantly evolving and learning. And this whole idea of relationships transforming, it really challenges that whole soulmate concept, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The spirits are basically saying, hey, connection isn't about finding a perfect match. It's about growing together, evolving together.
So even if you feel super connected to someone in this life, it's not guaranteed that you'll be, like, joined at the hip in the spirit world.
Right. It's more fluid than that, which is kind of mind-blowing, right?
It is. So we've talked about, like, the extremes of spirit relationships, the love and the conflict. But what about those in-between connections? The casual acquaintances. Do spirits experience that too?
That's a great question. And actually, Kardec asked the spirits out that specifically about the nature of sympathies in the spirit world. And their answer is really interesting.
Okay, I'm all ears. What do they say?
Well, they describe sympathy as this sense of harmony, of affinity, like a natural attraction towards those who share your vibe, I guess, your aspirations.
So it's not necessarily about, like, deep, passionate love, but more of a shared wavelength.
Exactly. And these sympathies, they can change over time. You might be drawn to certain spirits initially, but then as you evolve, you might drift apart. Or you might discover unexpected connections with others.
So it's always shifting, always evolving.
That's the beauty of it. It's like a cosmic dance, And honestly, it makes sense, doesn't it? Our relationships here are rarely static either. They change as we do.
Totally. So basically the spirits are confirming what we already know deep down.
Yeah.
Connection is a dynamic process.
Precisely. Both in this life and beyond.
Wow. So much to think about. Yet all these different layers of spirit relationships is fascinating. But I have to ask, what about those who, maybe didn't have a ton of strong connections here on Earth? Do they just end up alone in the spirit world?
Great question. Kardec actually asked the spirits about that too, and they said, well, no one's really truly alone in the afterlife. Connection is kind of built into the fabric of that world.
So even if you felt isolated here, you'll find your people on the other side.
Exactly. Remember, there are no physical barriers in the spirit world, so connections form on a much deeper level. It's about shared values, aspirations, that kind of thing.
So it's like finding your soul tribe, your true family, even if those connections weren't obvious here.
Right. It's all about resonance. And it's comforting to think that those who struggled to find belonging here might experience that deep connection on the other side,
Absolutely. It really speaks to how interconnected we all are, even if we don't always realize it. But if these connections are always in flux, how do spirits handle those shifts and changes? Do they ever feel, heartbroken or lost when relationships evolve?
That's where the whole idea of attachment comes in. The spirits warn against clinging too tightly, even to those we love. They say it can actually hinder our progress.
So even in the spirit world, letting go is a key part of growth.
Exactly. It's about accepting the natural flow of things, allowing relationships to evolve without trying to control them.
It's a big lesson and not an easy one to learn, even here. But the spirits seem to suggest that as we progress, we gain a deeper understanding of how everything's connected, right?
Yeah, and that even when relationships change, the love we shared, the experiences, those stay with us.
It's almost like shifting your perspective. Instead of focusing on the loss, you appreciate the journey. the growth you experience together.
Precisely. And that opens you up to new connections, new possibilities for growth.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of what it means to connect, to love, to evolve.
And remember, we've only just scratched the surface here. There's so much more to explore in the Spirit's book about this topic.
Absolutely. But even this glimpse into spirit relationships has been amazing. It's made me think about my own connections in a completely different way.
And that's really the goal, right? To use these insights to better understand ourselves and the world around us.
Well said. A huge thanks to you for guiding us through this fascinating exploration. I'm definitely feeling inspired to keep learning and growing.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it as thought-provoking as we did. Until next time, keep exploring, keep connecting, and keep those spirits high.